Glass elevators, 41 floors of them, climbing through a Texas skyline lit up gold for the holidays. Down in the lobby, a quartet played something that sounded like sleigh bells trying to be jazz, and caterers moved through the crowd with trays of shrimp nobody would remember eating. Somewhere above the security desk, a brushed steel directory listed every tenant in the tower, floor by floor, name by name. Most people walked past it without a glance. I always slowed down. Third line from the bottom, easy to miss unless you knew where to look. Ash Grove Holdings, LLC, Building Management. That was me. Nobody in that lobby knew it yet. This tower wasn't the only line with that name on it. It wasn't even the largest, but it was the one that mattered tonight, so it was the only one I was thinking about. Vivian's hand was tight around my arm as we walked in, her heels clicking a rhythm that meant, "Don't embarrass me tonight." She told me that morning, straightening my collar with more force than necessary, that Solstice Creative's holiday party was not the place for one of your quiet guy routines. I'd nodded. I'm good at nodding. 11 years of marriage teaches you which battles cost more than they're worth. I didn't know this one would be the last. It hadn't started tonight. That's the part I keep coming back to. 3 Christmases ago, at a smaller Solstice dinner, she introduced me to a table of account managers as Graham, my husband. He's between projects right now. I remember it because between projects was already true for 6 years by then and would stay true, in her telling, for 3 more. At her cousin's wedding, she told the bridal party I did something with real estate, sort of a hobby. At her own sister's baby shower, she didn't introduce me at all, just let people assume I was someone's +1 and drifted off to refill her wine. I used to think she was protecting herself from questions she couldn't answer. Somewhere along the line, I stopped being sure that was it. So when she told me that morning to keep it low-key, I understood the instruction. I'd had 11 years of practice reading it. Bramwell found us near the bar within 4 minutes. He ran Solstice like a man who'd never once been told no, and he had a laugh that carried across rooms on purpose. Vivian, and he squinted at me like he was reading a name tag that didn't exist. Graham, right? Remind me what you do again? Property. 2 words. That's all he was getting. Property. He turned back to Vivian, smiling the kind of smile that never quite reaches an insult you can call out loud. Well, it's good you've got someone steady at home, frees you up to actually build something here. Not everyone's lucky enough to have that kind of flexibility. A few of her coworkers laughed, the polite kind, the kind that agrees with a joke nobody said out loud. Vivian didn't laugh, but she didn't correct him either. I'd like to say that moment didn't sting. It did, not because of what he said, but because of what she let stand. He's between big projects, she said finally. 3 Christmases later, and it was still her answer. Of course he is, Bramwell said warmly, and somehow that was worse than mockery would have been. Vivian pulled me aside near the coat check 20 minutes later, her voice pitched low and sharp, the one she used when she thought nobody else could hear it. Can you just try tonight? These are the people who decide my bonus, my promotion, my entire year, Graham. I am trying. You're standing there like... She stopped, exhaled hard through her nose. Like you don't even care what they think of you, of us. Is that what you think I care too little of? What they think? I think, she said, glancing over my shoulder to make sure Bramwell wasn't in earshot, that you could at least pretend to be impressive for one night. It's not that hard. I didn't answer that. Some sentences don't deserve one. But I noticed, filing it away the way I file most things, she hadn't asked me to defend myself. She'd asked me to perform a version of myself that didn't embarrass her. Those aren't the same request, and only one of them is something a person can actually do for 11 years running. If you've ever had someone you loved decide, out loud, in front of strangers, exactly how small you were, stay with me. It gets worse before it gets better. A gray, blazered man crossed the lobby floor around 9, moving with the unhurried purpose of someone who'd walked that exact path 100 times before. He had a master key ring at his belt, and the kind of face that made junior employees straighten up without knowing why. He stopped a few feet from our group, glanced at me, and did a small, precise double-take. "Mr. Ashgrove?" His tone landed somewhere between surprise and respect. "I'm sorry, Mr. Who?" His attention was still on me. "Didn't expect to see you at tonight's event, sir. Wanted to flag the 12th floor HVAC before you head out." "Noted. We'll talk Thursday." Bramwell's eyes moved between us, doing some private arithmetic that clearly wasn't landing on an answer he liked. "Vivian," he said low, almost amused, almost not, "does your husband know the building maintenance staff by name?" I didn't offer anything. I just checked my watch because I already knew what came next, and some things are better heard from someone other than yourself. Vivian's face had gone very still. "Graham? Who is that?" "Otis. He runs the building."
"Which building?" I didn't answer that one either. Not yet. Otis, to his credit, had no idea he was about to detonate anything. He was simply doing his job. "Sir?" Bramwell said again, laughing without much conviction behind it now. "Wait, you two know each other?" Otis blinked, genuinely puzzled by the question. "Know each other? He owns the building, Mr. Bramwell." A small, easy shrug, like this was the least interesting fact in the room. Silence has a texture in rooms like that. You could feel it settle over the little semicircle that had formed, thick and sudden. Vivian's face did something I'd never seen it do before. The color just left it all at once, like someone had pulled a plug. "Graham," she said, barely audible, "what is he talking about?" "The building," I said. "I own it. I've owned it since before we met, actually." I let that sit for a second. "You never asked. In 11 years, Vivian. Not once." Bramwell tried to recover first, because men like him always do. Hold on, that's got to be some kind of, you can't just—" "Check the directory," I said. "Third line, right under the elevator bank. Ashgrove Holdings, LLC. Been there the whole time." He actually went, I'll give him that much. He crossed the lobby floor, past the quartet, past the caterers, to the brushed steel panel bolted by the security desk, the one he'd walked past every single morning for 4 years without reading. He found the line. I watched his shoulders drop half an inch when he did. When he turned back around, I was standing right behind him, close enough that he had to look up from the directory to me and then back down again, like he was checking the two of us matched. "You've walked past it every single day you've had your office here. So is she." His mouth opened. Nothing useful came out of it. Vivian stood frozen between us, holiday lights turning her face gold and then blue and then gold again, and for the first time all night, nobody in that lobby was laughing at me. I didn't gloat. Gloating requires needing something from a room like that, and I hadn't needed anything from it in years. I just picked up my coat, thanked Otis for the update, and told Vivian I'd have a car waiting outside whenever she was ready. She found me an hour later, on the sidewalk, her breath fogging in the cold Texas night that somehow still felt cold even in December. "Why didn't you tell me?" her voice cracked. 11 years, Graham, and you let me stand in there and call you a— "You called me that," I said, "not tonight first. You'd been calling me that for years, just quieter, between projects, a hobby, flexibility. Tonight was just the first time you said the real word out loud. I didn't mean—"
You meant it enough to let a room full of people you answer to hear it and not correct them. My voice stayed level, stayed cold, because that's the only way I know how to say things that matter. I'm not angry you didn't know about the building. I'm asking myself why you never wanted to know the man who owns it, whether it was ever about not knowing or about not asking. She didn't have an answer. For the first time in a long time, neither did I need one from her. I watched something shift behind her eyes that had nothing to do with money. It wasn't the tower she was grieving. It was the 11 years of dinners where she'd decided in advance what my silence meant. Tired, uninteresting, nothing worth asking about. When the truth was, she'd simply never asked. She wasn't just recalculating my net worth out there on that sidewalk. She was recalculating me, trying to figure out which parts of the man she'd married she'd actually met, and which parts she'd invented so she wouldn't have to. Solstice Creative's lease came up for renewal that spring, right as they were finalizing a floor expansion Bramwell had been promising the board for a year. New offices, a bigger footprint, the kind of growth story that gets a CEO his next bonus. I didn't punish them for it. I didn't need to. I simply declined to offer the below-market concessions Bramwell had always assumed, without ever asking, would just be there for him. The way he'd assumed a great many things without asking. Market rate, standard terms, nothing punitive, nothing personal exactly, the deal any other tenant in that building would sign. Bramwell fought it for 3 weeks before folding. The expansion happened anyway, eventually, at a number that ate most of the year's projected margin. The bonus pool that funded promotions came up short that cycle. Vivian's name had been on the short list for director. It came off it quietly, the way these things do, with nobody willing to say out loud why. She never once tried to call and ask me to intervene. I think some part of her finally understood that I wouldn't have, and a smaller part understood I'd earned the right not to. I still walk past that directory some mornings. Ash Grove Holdings, third line from the bottom, same as always. For 11 years, Vivian thought she was the one standing in the room that mattered, and I was just the man standing beside her. She never once stopped to ask whose name was on the building holding both of us up. She's not the first person to make that mistake. She won't be the last.
But she was the one I would have told if she'd ever just asked.